Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of Frome Town Council. I'm Peter Wheelhouse. I'm the acting town clerk, and I will temporarily chair this meeting until we have the election of a chair. Just to remind everyone, we've got people online and here in the room. For those in the room, a little housekeeping. The emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room here, and the assembly point is the far side of the car park at the back of the town hall. Toilets are at the end of the corridor on the right, and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Please help yourselves to a cup of tea if you haven't already done so. Tonight I will clerk. Laura, Sarah and Rachel will manage the minutes, questions board, participant settings and the IT generally. The meeting will be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and for everyone else, ask questions through the Q&A board. Now, before we move to the first item, I'd like to introduce Councillor Fiona Barrows, Leader and Chair of the Council. Fiona.
Thank you, Peter. Can everyone hear me? You do? Yes. So first of all, I'm really sorry not to be with you all in person tonight, particularly to welcome our new councillor, Richard, in person to his first council meeting. Congratulations on your election, Richard, and I'm really looking forward to working with you and getting to know you over the coming months. The reason I'm joining you remotely this evening is that last month I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It is in both sides and in both sets of lymph nodes, which means that treatment will be intensive and extensive, starting with 6 months of chemotherapy and immunotherapy from this Friday. The timing of this diagnosis is, if I'm honest, heartbreaking. I think you all know how much I love being leader and chair and how much I love this town. There is so much work underway, so much momentum, and so much that I still really want to do. No one really knows how they're going to react to treatment until they begin, but I'm optimistic that I'll be able to continue in my role with the support of my fellow councillors and our staff, but we will have to see how it goes and take it step by step. As you would expect from me, I did try to persuade my consultant to let me continue chairing council meetings in person, but unfortunately he was having none of it. The risk of infection, particularly at this time of year, is simply too high. So the first item on the agenda tonight is to agree to waiver standing orders to allow another councillor to chair. Otherwise, it would automatically fall to Anita, who already does an extraordinary amount of work for us, and doing this will spread the workload more evenly. There are two more things I want to say before we get on with our meeting. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to my fellow councillors and to all staff at Frome Town Council for your support over the past really difficult few weeks. It has meant so much to me, and thank you now for all going out of your way to make sure I can attend meetings online and continue to be effective in my role, even at a slight distance. I really do appreciate it. And secondly, this is a personal plea. If you're able to, I would really appreciate it if you could consider supporting our local charity, We Hear You. They need to raise £55,000 by the end of March to continue their work providing free and low-cost counselling to people like me now living with cancer. In many of my many appointments at the RUH, their name has come up. Doctors and nurses have spoken about how valued their support is, how much people have benefited from it, and how sad they are that the charity is facing possible closure and that their waiting list is currently closed. More and more people are getting cancer at a younger age. It is interrupting lives that are still being built. Not everyone has strong support networks around them, and many people are financially insecure even before their diagnosis. On a personal level, if they were able to accept new referrals, I would be in the queue, as it is a service I desperately need right now. I thought I had faced tough challenges before, but nothing compares to this. Frome is known for coming together as a community, so if you would like to support me, I would ask you to transfer that support to We Hear You and help keep them going for the many people in our community who they support during the toughest times in their lives. Thank you, and back to you, Peter.
Thank you, Fiona. So we now move to the first item on the agenda, which is to waive standing orders to enable a councillor other than the chair or deputy chair to chair this meeting. Do we have a proposer? Andy Jones, seconded Nick Dove, and votes. That's a majority. Thank you for that. And we now move to the second item on the agenda, which is to elect a chair. Do we have a nomination, a proposer? It's Nick Dove.
Sarah.
And a seconder? That's Philip Campagna. In favour? That's a majority. Thank you very much. Sarah, would you like to take the chair, please?
Peter, can I just clarify if Fiona is unable to attend the next couple of council meetings, we need to go through, sorry. Can I just clarify, is this, yeah, it's on now. If Fiona is unable to attend the next couple of council meetings, do we need to go through this process at each individual meeting, or can we take this as a vote for Sarah to chair in Fiona's absence for the next couple of meetings?
Well, you've just taken a vote on this meeting, so we'd have to repeat the process.
Thank you, all of you, for having faith in me to take the chair again, and I'm sure you'll all join me in sending our love and best wishes to Fiona. We're all really sorry you can't be here, and we are all wishing you all the best. First thing is apologies for absence, and we have two this evening. Obviously Fiona, because she's there online, and Tracy Ashford also sent her apologies. I think that's
it, yes.
all. Then we need to move on to any councillors' interests, declaration of interests.
To vote on those.
Oh, we need to vote on those. First mistake. A proposer for voting on accepting Lindsay Mayhew and a seconder, Ben Steele. Everyone, aye to accepting.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. And now declarations of any councillors' interests in any items on the agenda this evening. That's none, thank you. And now we move on to the minutes of the last meeting. Any comments on the minutes of the last council meeting? Or questions from councillors or other attendees? No, that's also a no. Okay.
We need
So
to vote on that.
we need to take a vote to accept that. Proposer, Carla Colonet, seconded by Anne Hills.
That's majority. Of course. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And the next point is any questions and comments from the public, and that would include any Somerset councillors, Dawn Denton, who I don't think is here this evening, Adam Boyden. Lenka's hands up first, then you, sir, then Martin.
Hello. Could I just bring up about the changing places toilet? Because I raised this back in October, and there's been increasing misuse. Had some meetings with some other professionals, and yeah, it's been seriously misused with drug taking and the cleanliness, and it's affecting people that really need it. People, in quite distress. So I'm just wondering when a keypad is going to be fitted for extra security, so it's not misused.
Thanks, Lenka.
This is probably one for Rachel.
Rachel?
Well, it's Alistair as well. Can you hear me over the microphone? No. That's not very good. So Alistair and I have been looking into it together. We are just about to start engagement on the toilets, and it didn't feel right to move forward with any action on the toilets until that has been completed, and then at that point we'll have a overall picture of what's happening and how we're going to move forward with the toilets and the keypad.
Are you specifically talking about the changing places The one in Victoria Park or the town centre? Okay. So at the moment, I've reached out to Bath and North East Somerset, who have a keypad installed on one of their changing places toilets for comment as to how it's working for them, to see if it does have any limitation on accessibility, which we want to be clear on before we go ahead.
Yeah, so there is a changing, as you know, there's a changing places network across the country. Various people, so the method, you could either phone a number to get the code, or it could be from the Cheese Grain. And yeah, that changing places toilet down by the Cheese Grain was fundraised for a lot of money, and it is. So I'm just asking if it can be like urgent, and I'm just wondering on the timescale if you're going to be doing some engagement. That sounds quite a long timescale.
The timescale is 6 weeks, so not super long. Also, the information coming back from the Cheese and Grain has said that their issues have quietened down there. So we obviously need to reconnect with Chris and have more conversation with them.
Yeah, no, I speak to the police and the PCSOs and the homeless team, and it is being abused
Can I bring
by.
in Andy Jones at this point? I think we've got...
I mean, it certainly strikes me that it's probably not necessary to include that in the big consultation exercise. Why would we delay it for 6 weeks if it's such a critical problem? I'd really like to see us try and move forward with that in a separate thread, if possible.
Agreed. Is that okay for now, Lenka, and we can keep you in the loop?
Thank you, Andy. Yes, because that was, this has been in October that I had that sort of information. So that would be really good if you can make it as urgent as possible, please.
Okay. Thanks for the question. Gentleman at the back in the blue jumper. Microphone, yes, please.
Thank you very much. Is that on? I can't. Okay. My name is Chris Wildridge, and I've been in correspondence with some councillors and the clerk in recent weeks. To put things in context, I was a senior local government officer for nearly 40 years. In my last job, I was responsible for a 7-week budget and preparation of papers for councillors and budget management. The question I'm going to raise is in connection with that. Not my employment, yours. And I would also say it's interesting to see how few people are here today, because I chaired a parish council for 10 years, and if we got more than 2 people at a meeting, we were doing well. However, the minute number 2 says this. The budget would be brought Anita Collier explained FTC was in a pre-election period due to a by-election on the 10th of February and therefore could not progress certain items. The first opportunity to bring the budget would be the 18th of February. Now, I have asked whether or not the council was a member of SALC, Somerset Association of Local Councils. I presume you are. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Correct. I also asked what department in the Somerset Council was consulted over postponing the presentation of the budget. And I can't remember the precise details of it, the part that dealt with parish council precepts, correct?
That's correct, that's
okay.
right.
Now, in your minute, which was agreed, it said and therefore could not progress certain items. Now, the comment apologies. The comment that Peter Wheelhouse sent to me, the reply from Somerset Council was this, quote, they confirmed they were happy to see a deferral. That's correct?
That's right, yes.
Okay. That doesn't say you may not. It doesn't say you mustn't. It says if you choose. And so this council took the advice from Somerset saying you could defer, but you actually chose to defer. Can you explain that, please?
I'm going to pass on to Peter for that question.
The context for this very much is the Local Government Act 1986. And what that act says is that during a pre-election period or other times, when there is high sensitivity, Council has got to consider whether publishing material would in any way be perceived to be in favour of any particular political group. And the view was that the publication of a work programme, budget and precept demand, in draft, could potentially influence voters in the previous election, of course, which has now been decided. So what we were doing there is we were using our discretion, but we were following what is set out in the Local Government Act 1986. And my understanding is that other councils, would follow that kind of lead if they were faced with that situation. In addition to that, there is government guidance which has been published since 1986, which makes it clear that we shouldn't, during a pre-election period, do anything which may be perceived to be affecting the votes within that election during that period. So we used our discretion, which is our right to do, and what we were doing is we were following the guidance from government, and we were also abiding by the law within the Local Government Act 1986. And that really sets out the key reasons why we decided to defer the consideration of the budget, work programme and precept to this particular meeting.
Thank you, Peter. Does that answer your question? It's not on.
The particular word you used on the night was it was purdah. I wasn't here, but the issuing of the budget was under purdah. It couldn't be discussed in January. So, but my point is that what this, comment from your comment in the minute and the comment from Somerset is it said could. Didn't say mustn't. You could have delayed it, you could have published them, and so that's the point I'm raising. And I appreciate your particular point by quoting from the legislation and guidance, but that wasn't clear on the night.
I'm unable to comment on whatever anyone else may have said about this, but I am very clear on what the law says, and I think we were absolutely right to defer that particular item.
Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Anita, did you have something to say related to that? Martin, I know you're waiting. Anita?
Not relating to that, on another issue.
Okay, I'll come back to you then.
Okay.
Martin was next.
Thank you. Actually, I was just waving. I was just letting you know I was here. If anybody's got any questions regarding Somerset issues, I'm happy to take them.
I see. Does anyone have any questions relating to Somerset issues?
Good. Don't ask me about potholes. 5,000 new ones within the space of about 4 days. They'll get round to it, I think, is the answer.
Great. Thanks. Nice to see you, Martin. Anita?
Thank you, Chair. I was approached by a resident recently asking who was the town councillor for Inox Ward. Well, I know who it is, but she'd looked on the website and could find nothing. And having checked that, I can see that Steve looks as though he's disappeared from our website under the councillors as being responsible for Inox.
Oh, no.
So can we please put that right? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make a note of that. Thanks. He's definitely still here. Thank you. That's just a note to amend the website to reflect that Steve is definitely still the councillor for Inox. Anne?
Thank you. Yes, mine goes back to Fiona, and I think it's an enormous injustice that Fiona is not going to be able to vote while she's undergoing treatment, and it's a horrendous situation that because the government won't bring forward legislation that allows local councillors, parish and town councillors, to vote when they're remote from the room, it's discriminatory, I believe. So for someone whose immune system is compromised, she is unable to take part in democracy. And I think she would be an ideal test case to take to SALC. So I'm asking Andy Jones, as our representative on the board of SALC, to take this forward and to take it to the National Association of Local Councils. Also, I think we ought to accept Fiona's apologies as a block. Are we able to do that for as long as she needs, so that we don't have to vote on her apologies each time?
Thanks, that's a really good question. Peter first, then I'm going to come to you, Fiona, and then to Andy.
I have discussed this with Fiona, and I think her preference at the moment is to go from meeting to meeting. But obviously Fiona will be able to confirm that when she speaks.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you so much, Anne, for that. And just say, first of all, on the issue around voting, I'm really aware of that. We're voting on a number of items tonight that I've been heavily involved in, and not being able to vote on them is actually quite painful, to be honest. So Peter and I actually discussed it this week and about contacting NALC and SALC, etc. I agree with you. I think I'm quite a good test case, a good case study for this. So we'll do that. On the apologies, Peter very helpfully did come up with a way, but it would involve taking a leave of absence. I'm kind of plotting a way, as you'd expect, come the spring, involving the fire escape and a separate table in the corner, that I might be able to attend meetings in person to be able to vote when the weather's a bit better and when there's less germs going around. But obviously it depends on how I feel. I won't be able to chair. I don't think that's realistic. But maybe a little separate table in the corner might be able to be arranged. But thank you, Anne, and I think Peter and I will pick that up. And Andy, if you're happy to be involved on SALC, I've already been in contact with you and Jones about it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to be a conduit and support that as best I can through SALC and NALC. So let's work together on how we word this and push it forward.
Thanks for the question, Anne. Thanks, everyone. Any further questions not related to the rest of the agenda? Good. Okay, so we will now move on to agenda item 5, which is to approve the finance report to 31st of January 2026. And I believe I'm handing over to Sarah.
Yes, thank you. Laura, have you got the slide? There's only one slide, you'll be glad to know. So the papers went out, and as the table shows, we're estimating a surplus carry forward spend of 159,000, which we're intending to use as income subsidy to next year. That's pretty much all there is to say on the outcome estimated at the moment. Does anyone have any questions about the table or any items in the table?
Andy?
Of course, you expect me to pick something like this up. First of all, I would say there's a number of findings on the auditor reports, which a lot of them seem to be sort of technicalities, and I think you've responded to very well. Thank you. I think it's a useful learning exercise and helps keep us on the straight and narrow. There was one specific question I had, which was on an EMR. Where are we? Focus eyes. The one for Adderwell, the S106 money from Adderwell.
Yeah.
There's a comment there that says the completion of the purchase was expected June 25, which I believe happened. I'm just surprised that we still need to keep that EMR sat there.
It's an accounting thing. The money needs to move from the EMR to the income to pay for the purchase. So the actual EMR for Adderwell is about 3,000.
Yeah.
And not what is showing at present. And that will be handled at year end.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
The other items on this piece of the agenda are the auditor reports. So the internal auditor has noted that operations and assets terms of reference cannot approve the auditor reports, so they now have to come to council. The external auditor report for the March 25 year end went to the November operations and assets. So this item would like you to approve that report, and also approve the internal auditor's report of the 18th of December, which was circulated with extensive observations and our responses.
Andy?
Just one other comment I was going to make, which was we're coming up to that time of year when we also sign off AGAR.
Yes.
And I believe the latest guidance is that the AGAR form should come to council as blank, and we individually approve the tick marks as they go in. So if you could just review how that's handled. Thank you.
Yes. Not blank of figures, but blank of...
Blank of check marks, so it's actually
Okay.
approved in the meeting, not pre-approved.
Thank you. Any more questions? So I think we're on to the recommendations, please.
Yep.
Oh, apologies. The report that went out had headings and footer with November dates on. The accounting content is correct, the 31st of January, but today I only just noticed and had to change the date on the recommendations, which you'll see there. And Andy Jones missed it too.
Damn it. So we need to vote on that change. So proposer, Andy, seconder, Lindsay, all those in favour of accepting that amendment? I think that's everyone.
That's unanimous.
And now we need to vote on the recommendations as amended. So, yeah, in block. We're voting on these in block. So proposer for that, Anne, seconder, Carla, all those in favour? That's everyone?
That's unanimous.
Unanimous, thank you. Okay, done. Agenda item 6, and I think that Fiona is starting us off on this. This is for decision. This is to look at our work programme, the budget and the precept demand for 26-27. This is going to take up the main bulk of the evening. We're going to hear a lot. We're going to kick off with Fiona. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you. So I'm sort of introducing, I'm going to do my introduction to the to all of it, even though I think it will then sort of get broken down into the work programme, the staff chart, and then the budget and precept demand. But just because it's a little clunky, me sort of coming in and out as I'm remote. So I just wanted to start by explaining a little about how we got here, as this work programme budget hasn't appeared in isolation. Most of us councillors have been in place for 3.5 years now, and this is a result of all of us spending much of that time listening and learning, and then working closely with our brilliant staff team over the last few months to pull it all together. Back in October, we agreed our updated strategy, which sets out what we want to achieve as a council for the rest of our term, and this formed the basis of our work programme. The strategy was built partly on the Picture of Frome engagement work, talking with residents and partners about what matters to them. Through this, a clear picture emerged of our town's priorities, things like doing more for our young people, particularly teenagers, caring for the River Frome, protecting our open spaces and the places where we come together as a community, campaigning for better public transport, and doing what we can to make sure our infrastructure keeps pace with the level of development in the town. In addition, over the last few years, in response to Somerset Council's financial difficulties, we have stepped up for Frome, in some cases formally by taking on assets and responsibilities from them, and in other cases more informally by filling gaps in ways that reflect Frome Town Council's community-led approach. This includes strengthening our network of community support as the threshold for statutory services gets higher and higher, and helping people earlier so they don't reach crisis point, and doing more in the town centre to supplement the very basic level of cleaning and maintenance service that Somerset Council now provides. We also know and see how much many people in Frome are genuinely struggling, whether that's financially, making ends meet, with their mental or physical health, accessing the services and support they need, or feeling lonely and isolated. And we're all determined to do what we can to help those that really need it, including supporting people to reduce their energy bills, signposting people to access the support they need, both formally and by building a stronger, more connected community, and investing in the new open spaces that we've recently taken on from Somerset Council, many of which currently have very little to offer and are in parts of town with very little community infrastructure, but have the huge potential to become something really positive for these neighbourhoods. Alongside that, we also look closely at what is genuinely working and where we are having the greatest impact as a town council. And all of this came together to guide our choices and shaped our strategy and now our work programme and our budget. I want to say something personal about our budget. I sit in meetings from September onwards about it. And as I look at the figures that I'm being presented with, I can't help but think in the back of my head, can I afford this? I live in Frome in a privately rented flat, which is a Band D property. And as I live on my own, I pay 75% of that bill and 100% of all the others that come in. I feel the cumulative pressure of rising costs just like everyone else. And I know that lots of small increases quickly add up to something significant. I'm struggling just like so many other people, and I know many of my fellow councillors are as well. So we don't take any increase lightly. As such, we have gone through every single line in this budget with real care, and there have been detailed discussions with all councillors about our areas of work and every pound we are proposing to spend. We have tried very hard to keep our costs down while also producing a realistic budget that delivers our council plan. We are also aware that Somerset Council's future is still very uncertain, so we have to maintain healthy reserves to be able to act if necessary and to be prepared for the wider, increasingly uncertain future that is facing all of us. Personally, in this proposal, the council tax that I pay to Frome Town Council, so 75% of Band D, will rise from around £4.25 a week to £4.50 a week and will be just under £20 a month in total. When I look at everything that we do in Frome and everything that we're planning to do, I believe that is really good value for money, but that is the judgment that we all have to make. To me, that money is invested locally and is used to support the people, places and opportunities that make Frome what it is. This budget is about maintaining what works, stepping up where it's needed and continuing to invest in our community in a way that is practical, responsible and rooted in the priorities our residents have helped shape. I'm really proud to have been part of producing the strategy, the work programme, the budget, and I just wish I was able to be there in person to vote for it. But back to you, Peter, I think.
Thanks for that, Fiona.
So what we're going to do now is run through very briefly the work programme, and with one exception, that's Matt Mellon. All of our managers are here this evening and they're going to do 2 minutes on their highlights of their part of the work programme, following which there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I'm very proud to introduce our management team, and first up tonight is Hannah, who is going to talk about our work in the area of community engagement and development. Hannah.
Hi. Okay. Richard, we haven't met. I'm Hannah Stopford. I'm the Community Partnerships and Development Manager. And so unsurprisingly, the community team's work is largely, although not exclusively, working towards the first aim in the council plan priorities to grow community wellbeing. And almost everything we're focused on in this year's work programme serves to build social capital and increase community resilience and influence, and especially for those voices who are less frequently heard. So first on the list in the budget is the work we're doing to develop a thriving space at the recently devolved Key Centre, a purpose-built intergenerational community centre. And we're working with the local community and other stakeholders to co-design the offer here as much as possible, also to generate an income through renting rooms, but also making sure that we partner with the right people to bring social value to the space. And it's already feeling transformed and revitalised, and we'll be coming back to council in June for a full report at the end of the test and learn year. I'm going to have to go a bit faster to finish this into 2 minutes. Okay, so we work with community organisations and VCFSE sector, voluntary, community, faith and social enterprise, to support the huge number of active groups here, and we're all working towards addressing gaps in our town. And so we do that through training, networking, resources and partnerships, as well as a community grants scheme, which is the biggest chunk of our budget. And we're going to be building on some pilots that we've carried out this year to make grant making more participatory and inclusive. We're also looking at the results of some research that we commissioned earlier this year into the funding landscape in Frome, and to look at maybe a different approach to this kind of support, particularly around developing strategic partnerships. And we'll be looking into that in more detail at a council meeting in March, next month. So we're going to continue working on projects that harness the voice of children and young people, co-designing and creating with young people as much as possible, such as redeveloping open spaces and creating a youth-focused grants programme. And the commissioning of services is probably the largest bit of our budget, because we're going to want to follow through on that engagement with the commissioning of work that young people have told us matters. And as well as working directly with children and young people themselves, we've got a really strong network of forums and partners who are engaged and connective and active on issues that impact young people. And those kind of networks are testament to the power of connection in terms of responding to need and tackling things before they reach crisis point. And they also ensure that Frome has got a voice in wider regional conversations. Okay, and then one of the things that we sometimes hear at events is who's not in the room, which is a really important question when it comes to addressing inclusivity and removing barriers to participating for everybody. And we also know that some people, and maybe an awful lot of people, will never come to the room, which is why we continue to place high value on being out in the community and going to where people are, whether that's in neighbourhoods or with communities of interest or communities of identity, and that's why it's so valuable to have the capacity to do that with our engagement team. This year we're looking at engagement on devolved open spaces. As Fiona mentioned, especially there's a huge green area just off Brunel Way that I'm excited about engaging in. Actually, I just remembered Nikki Cox and I did some engagement work there 3 years ago, and the big thing that came out was like, can you do something about the open spaces? And we were like, no, they're Mendips, but now they're ours, so we can. And we're also really excited about the launch of the My Frome digital platform, working closely with Rachel's team on that, because not only will that have a wider reach digitally, but also for us, it's got the capability to collate results from face-to-face engagement work. So we'll be able to easily analyse outcomes from a range of engagement methods. Nearly finished. We've got some skilled practitioners in the team, and one especially who's going to support the work with the Improvement Advisory Group to develop approaches to equality, diversity and inclusion. And there's a budget attached to that part of the work for a stakeholder bursary that can serve to remove barriers to participation in panels and events. Have you got a timer on? Okay, hang on. 2 seconds. I've got tiny
2 minutes.
Okay, so just I've got one tiny paragraph. Just one. The most marginalised voices in town are our displaced people. So we've got 2 external contracts. One of them is the funding Toast Our Welcome Hub. So there's practical support there, as well as opportunities for displaced people to engage in community activity. And we've also got an external contract that funds our Somerset Connect champion, who's our link between statutory and non-statutory services. So if you took out the grants part, our budget is quite small, but we've got really great people on the team in the end. Thanks.
Anna, thanks very much. Great. Moving on now to assets, facilities management and maintenance. And we've got Alistair Finlay with us, who is our facilities manager. Alistair.
That's right. So my work programme extends across the built estate for Frome Town Council. Can basically be broken down into 3 main components. So statutory compliance and health and safety. So that's electrical safety, fire safety, water hygiene. Planned maintenance and operating costs. So annual servicing, utilities, consumables, repairs and upgrades, things that we know are going to happen. And lastly, reactive maintenance. So repairing anything untoward, repairing boilers, heating systems, broken windows, etc. That was less than 2 minutes.
Brilliant. Well done. That's the kind of 2 minutes I like. Thank you, Alistair.
And I'll be brief as well, because I'm actually going to speak on behalf of Matt Mellon, who can't be with us this evening, on climate action. So we're currently in a transitional phase, as you're probably aware. We're coming to the end of the Lotto-funded Green and Healthy Frome programme. But based on our experience over the last few years, our intention is to focus on 3 key priorities in 26-27. First is engagement with the community, especially around practical ways in which people can adapt to climate change. And key to this is improving the data and resources that we hold online and engaging through events. So that's the first priority. The second one that I'd like to highlight is building on our success in enabling property owners to install solar to help reduce their costs. Critical to maintaining the momentum is enabling our renewables contractor, Will Reynolds, to continue his work for a further 6 months to secure more installations and explore how we can take advantage of the recently announced local power plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that a bit later. And the third area is to improve home energy efficiency and support households struggling with energy costs. Our target is to provide retrofit assessments for 50 homes and provide advice, especially to those in fuel poverty. A 6-month extension of the Home Energy Support Coordinator's contract would enable this work to be done, alongside exploring new funding opportunities under the government's Warm Homes Plan, which was actually launched last month. So we'll come back to a couple of those things when we talk about the staffing structure and also the recommendations. But that's it really in terms of my briefing on climate action.
Thank you.
And the next up is Jane Llewellyn, our Planning and Development Manager, who's going to talk about planning and infrastructure.
Thank you, Peter. I bet Peter's was exactly 2 minutes, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you. I'll see what I can do. Okay, so the planning team and committee's priority is to shape high quality, sustainable and inclusive development in around Frome. I say around Frome particularly as all of the significant development that we're seeing come forward now is outside of the parish boundary. However, due to our high profile and willingness to engage with developers, they recognise that their development will directly impact Frome, its infrastructure, services and highway, so always want to come and discuss their proposals with us. And whilst we're not the planning authority and don't make the final decision, we're in an excellent position to reflect the local needs and priorities, negotiating what we believe are better developments together with appropriate Section 106 funds, or where appropriate, provide informed objections to unsuitable development. In the last 12 months, the committee has been advised on and considered 185 planning applications, and we anticipate a similar number for the coming year. And that can be as wide-ranging from somebody who wants to chop down a tree to the Oldford development that's just landed, which is 370 odd houses. We always ensure that applicants and residents have the opportunity to discuss their views with us. Another key priority is representing the town's needs and views, engaging with the community to ensure that we are reflecting local views. This will include work on the development of the new Somerset local plan, which will shape and influence development for the next 15 years. On the transport front, we'll be working with stakeholders, residents and adjoining parishes to produce a movement strategy. This will look at how we can improve active travel, reduce transport-related impacts and connectivity with more reliable journeys and look at improving air quality. The strategy will build on the work of the Somerset local plan and transport plan, taking a much more detailed look at Frome's highways and transport issues, providing an evidence base which can be used for negotiating Section 106 contributions and grant funding to provide the necessary infrastructure. And lastly, we'll also be lobbying Somerset for the introduction of the Community Infrastructure Levy, which is a charge on new development, which contributes to the provision of all the infrastructure that we've been talking about, or the refurbishment of existing infrastructure, to support the additional burden of new development and the impacts that has on the local strategic infrastructure and economy. And as a higher proportion of SIL will come directly to the town council, this will give us more access to funds and more autonomy on how we prioritise those funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Jane, thanks very much. And we now move to Rachel Griffin, who's our Marketing and Communications Manager, who's going to talk about economic regeneration and the town centre.
Thanks, Peter. Yes, the Town Centre Budget and Work Programme supports our priority to strengthen Frome's local economy and ensure a thriving and welcome and resilient town. Its focus is on creating the conditions for long-term economic health, but also to deliver visible, practical improvements that benefit both residents, businesses and visitors. A key strand of the work programme is in shaping a clear and confident future for Frome in the shape of a Frome Town Prospectus. This will define the town's identity and set out a compelling case for strategic investment and hopefully funding. Significant resource is also directed to the everyday quality of the town centre. This includes maintenance of the public realm, improvements delivered by the town centre ranger, new recycling bins and working with businesses to address commercial waste. These practical measures support a clean and well cared for, welcoming environment, reinforcing pride in place and making the town centre work better for everybody. Markets and town activity also remain central to both Frome's identity and their economy. Funding for market management and for major events such as Christmas parade and lights bring people into the town centre, support local traders and also strengthen our reputation as a lively and creative place. The Discover Frome work in this area continues to promote the town as a destination with website, information point, volunteers, stock and partnerships with local, regional and local attractions. This supports tourism, encourages longer visits from people and helps people to explore and spend locally. The budget also provides for essential infrastructure that underpins a safe and functional town centre. So within this budget sits the budgets for CCTV, the loop building, central toilet provision, cleaning utilities and their compliance. Alongside this, there is also investment in the staff team, including the town centre rangers, coordinators and volunteer support. This ensured that the work is delivered with care. Included in this budget is an additional 5 hours for the role of our town centre coordinator, Katie, and this will ensure that the work that she has started this year can continue where she can be really impactful.
Thanks, Rachel.
Rachel, thanks very much. And over to Rob Holden now, our Environment Manager on Open Spaces. Rob.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Rachel. So open spaces, we manage the spaces for biodiversity, for people, for access, and as we've said, for bringing communities together in open spaces in the new devolution spaces we've taken on. So with the open spaces, I'm just going to cover some of the larger items. So our open spaces overall budget has increased a little bit, but that's because of the extra sites that we've taken on. So that's our main spend. The photo top right is an interesting discussion topic, and it's about the bins. These are the many issues with bins, including in the town centre, but also on our estate. And so there's a major item that we're going to be reviewing, which is changing the supplier or the contractor who empties our bins. And so this year we're looking at quite a big increase, but that's in large part because Somerset Council, who empties the bins at the moment, have told us there'll be a 59% increase in the costs from them. And so we're looking at using the same amount of money to change to a different contractor who we believe will provide a much better level of service. So that's quite a big ticket item on that one. Play is, we have a very important part of bringing open spaces to life for everybody, especially obviously children. We've taken on 7 new play areas, and it's expensive business maintaining and refurbishing. Quite a few of the play spaces, as was mentioned earlier, that we've taken on have got very little in them. So there's an expense there in maintaining and improving those. And the last big ticket item I was going to mention is to do all of those works, we need a base. Our operation has grown significantly with plant, vehicles recently, and so we have the depot, which is taken over from Somerset. It's on a free, there's no rent for 25 years, but on condition that we fully repair and maintain it, and it is leaking both through the roof and through the walls because the downpipes aren't sufficient for the very big roof. So there's some investment in that this year. Skate park, we've already covered in previous meetings, but there's some spend on that this year, and other areas have increased in line with the fact that we've got more land to manage, like tree surgery, both the assessment of the safety risk and then the remedial works that follow from that. Just a quick note, if I may, on controlling costs. We have taken on 50% extra land in the last 18 months, and we have had no increase in ranger staff, so we've kept that major cost element flat. We have obviously invested in the tractor, which enables us to do the hedging and other works much more efficiently. So we've been focusing on increasing productivity rather than increasing staff costs. The Christmas tree, the charges are held flat for 3 years. The Christmas lights is on a 4-year contract, so those costs aren't going up. Fountain maintenance charges are held for the 3rd year in a row. Diesel costs are cut in half by going to red diesel with a bundled fuel tank. And then we've got income from some contracts that we do with the medical centre. We've got some income from memorial trees and bins, and yeah, that's it.
That's great.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Back to Rachel now for a brief view on marketing and communications. Rachel.
Yes, thank you. Our marketing and communications work programme this year is designed to ensure residents are well informed, well connected and able to play an active role in shaping the town. The programme is structured around 3 key areas: targeted communications activity, major digital projects and events. So first, our targeted communications support practical everyday communication. This includes digital newsletters, printed materials, signage, leaflets, branding and public information campaigns. This year there's a particular focus on producing clear, engaging content and accessible infographics. This should help residents quickly understand complex issues, decisions and find opportunities to get involved. Alongside this, being part of a bold and effective council increasingly means having to have strong digital foundations. 2 major projects sit at the heart of this year's work: a redesign of the Frome Town Council website and the launch and ongoing development of My Frome, our new digital engagement platform due to launch in the next few days. Together, these will make it clearer and easier for residents to understand what the council does, to stay up to date and share their views and take part in decision making in a modern, accessible and ultimately inclusive way. We also have an events budget that supports activity across the town. This includes events directly delivered by the council team, those run in partnership with others, and support for community-led initiatives. It covers a wide range of activity, from community meetings and park events to markets and activity around Boyle Cross. These budgets help to ensure events are safe, welcoming, well organised, and also supports opportunities for people to connect with one another, to celebrate local life and engage with the council's work and our priorities. Our largest portion of the budget is, of course, the staff team. Communication, engagement, event delivery are fundamentally people-led, and they rely on skilled staff who can listen, respond, build relationships. This year's budget, therefore, includes an additional 10 staff hours in order to help us deliver the work programme effectively and to a high standard that residents have come to expect.
Thank you, Rachel.
And now we move to Sarah Williams, who's our Business Manager and Responsible Finance Officer. Sarah.
Thanks. So business services, as you all know, provides services to underpin the activities of all staff, councillors, teams and projects. And it covers finance, IT, insurance, legal, HR, governance and civic services. This year we are focusing on the recommendation in the peer review for a medium-term financial plan, increasing cybersecurity and modern infrastructure of our IT system generally. That's it, in short.
Oh, brilliant. You win.
And you'll be very pleased to hear that on improvement and transformation, I'm going to keep my powder dry until the next item on the agenda, when I'll be together with Fiona introducing that. But naturally, I'll take any questions that you may have about what's in the paper. So that actually is the end of the presentation on the work programme, and we'll take any questions.
Richard, first question. In your new role.
Thank you very much. It was great to hear about the town centre and the rangers, and it was great to hear about the tractor that you got to cut hedges. But in Park Ward, I heard people telling me we need to get the weeds sorted out on the streets and the pavements. So can you tell me where that would be in the budget for, or the work programme for this year?
Thank you, Richard. The work to control the weeds in the town, if we're talking about the town, not Park Ward, but the town centre, if we're talking about the town centre, is that correct? You're talking about the town centre?
So that's the ward around the park, the streets around the park.
Well, the streets around the park are not managed by Frome Town Council, so you'd have to speak to Somerset Council to get those managed.
Steve, Tanner?
Yeah, Jane can, hopefully, if I get this wrong, but the pavements and whatever responsibility of Somerset Highways, not Frome Town Council, so we can't really start doing any work on their land effectively, if that's what you're referring to, Richard.
Is that okay? Does that
answer your
question?
question?
No, it's fine.
Thank you. Lenka?
I just wanted to come back on Richard's point, because I live in Park Ward, and I saw in your election leaflet that you said that you were going to get rid of all weeds. So I just wanted to point out that the Shane Collins and many, many volunteers have been doing hoedown for, I think, like 5 years, and you know, volunteering on Sundays, clearing our streets of weeds in order that we are not subject to chemical spraying by Somerset Council. So it's been really, really amazing.
I just would second that. Thank you, Lenka, for pointing that out. Nick, Martin, Andy, Lisa.
Whenever we do this and you get staff from the different departments talking, I always think, wow, what an amazing work we do in the town council. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. Very interesting, Richard's point there. You know, Frome Town Council actually have very little responsibility for things in the town centre. It's mostly the county council or other areas of government, local government. So potholes, rubbish, hospital waiting lists, housing and so on. That's not our responsibility. Frome Town Council over the last few years has taken on work in areas that have been things that are seen by councillors as important for the town. These include trying to reduce the impact of climate crisis, supporting residents through COVID, expanding and developing open spaces, and building community resilience. Recently, with the Somerset Council budget challenges, we've also taken on CCTV and some of the town centre cleaning, weeding, and repairing duties, along with other things. All of this over the last few years has seen the number of staff employed grow enormously, and so seen the need for increased larger accommodation costs for them and the business support services you need with a large workforce. Inevitably, individual councillors have areas that they really champion, And in my opinion, they are all valid and valuable. However, I remain concerned that we are not putting enough resources into an area that affects all of us who use the town centre, local residents visiting and working, and the thousands of visitors, all of whom contribute to the financial health of the town. And it's the appalling and dysfunctional system we have for rubbish collection, which is frankly a stain on the town. Recently, we've identified there are 12 different private contractors collecting business rubbish from the town centre. This means we have large commercial bins that litter the town, which are then covered in graffiti and frequently infested with vermin. Residents in the town have their domestic rubbish collected when the narrow streets can be accessed, and their recycling bins are then frequently left out, leaving the town centre looking scruffy and unloved. It encourages antisocial behaviour and often leads to congestion in our narrow streets. Somerset Council are rubbish at rubbish. Sorry for the pun, but it's their responsibility, and actually we know it's not going to get any better with their budgetary challenges. So I think that we should, as a town council, instead of looking at increasing yet again the precept, be diverting existing resources into a collaborative approach, working with Somerset Council and local businesses and residents to consider introducing, as Bath have, a daily town centre collection and recycling programme that would negate the need for large bins and make our streets cleaner and much more attractive. I want to stress that the work that is done is extraordinary, the work that is carried out, but I really think that we need to focus on something that affects the prosperity and the look of the town centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And I know there's a lot of work going on in that area that a few of us are involved in. There's been some definite signs of improvement around town, but it's very slow, very slow. Fiona, did you want to come back on that? Steve, I'll come to you after.
Oh, I think Steve was actually just going to direct you to me, actually, with a bit of, thinking over. To say, I think what I think is really interesting is what Rob said about the fact that we're going to be looking at our contract for the bins on our open spaces. The contract is currently with Somerset Council, and we're looking at moving that over. I think that, as you said, Nick, we have sort of expanded a lot recently, taken on new areas of responsibility, and all of them come, I think, with quite a steep learning curve, going into sort of new areas. So for me, we have a bit of an opportunity here by sort of going on our own, employing a local company to empty our bins in the open spaces. I'm really interested in how that works out and learning from it. And then I think we could look at, possibly sort of, that being an area that we move into. But I'm just sort of personally very wary about sort of, us sort of taking on lots of new different areas all at the same time, and it's sort of expanding, and you never quite know what you're taking on until you've taken it on, I think. But I think there's definitely an opportunity there that sort of starts with us looking, as Rob said, at the contract with our own bins and seeing how that works.
It's certainly something that's high on everyone's agenda at the moment. It's so visible. It is not being talked about. There are ongoing meetings between the town centre team, Rob and his team, and various parties to try and tackle something which is a real bugbear for everyone in the town. Any other points on that particular point before I go over to Martin? Wait, Martin.
Thank you. I think I might ask Somerset Council if they want to adopt that as a motto. Somerset is rubbish.
Rubbish at rubbish.
Yeah, but he's right. And I think this sort of issue, actually, Nick, is better micromanaged in a way, because, and I want to come back to the issue about the weeds as well. What happens is most of these things, you go on a huge rota, and the rota is never going to be ideal for everybody, and they'll come round various months of the year and do these jobs, or various weeks of the year and do these jobs. It's far better. Actually, we had a meeting, and it's far better that we get together and look at a way of taking it on. I think there's going to be enormous difficulty in moving, attempting to move commercial operatives away from their regular customers, or asking their regular customers to change that. That, I think, is going to remain a problem. But I think that in general, if we can get a more holistic
approach would be much better. On the weeds, I would say to Richard, it might be worth having a word with Shane. I'm not quite sure what the area he covers is, but they do this Sunday hoedown thing, which, as Lenka said, avoids this pernicious weed killer, that carcinogenic weed killer that's used by the councils. We can't seem to get them off that. But again, I think there'll be a rota when they'll come round. And if you go on the Somerset website, look at street management or highways and ask when they're due to be done. If you get no reply or anything, just please come back to me.
And you can find Frome Hoedown on Facebook, and they usually are responsive to requests to tackle particular streets. Andy, and then Lisa.
Just while Martin's still got the microphone, the tail end of Jane's presentation mentioned SIL, and I struggle to understand why Somerset Council, with all its budgetary constraints, isn't chasing that source of funding. It feels like it's money for free, and as I understand it, one of the previous district councils did used to gather it in, or possibly even 2 out of the 4. It seems senseless that we're not tapping into that funding when we've got a team here who's ready to spend it.
Yeah, just send me an email on that and I'll try and find out who to contact on it. Yeah, thank you.
Fiona's got her hand up on that one.
I just wanted to say that on behalf of Peter and I worked together on this. I sent an email to Bill Revens on behalf of the town councils of Glastonbury, Wells and Shepton Mallet. Is that right, Peter? I think so.
Right.
We all sort of, as the ones in Old Mendip, because as someone just said, they other of the ex-district authorities in Somerset Council do have SIL, and it's sort of transferred over to Somerset Council, making this exact point and saying, why do we not have it? It's ridiculous, and it would make such a difference to us. I did get a very thorough response back from Councillor Mike Rigby. I have to admit, it came in when I was in the middle of my diagnosis, and I haven't actioned it, but I will. It is in my to-do list. But I'm happy to talk to you about that, Martin, as well.
Thanks, Fiona. Lisa.
Thank you. I just want to pick up on some of the things that Nick has said, and also say that I, like Nick and all of the other councillors, think that everyone is doing an absolutely incredible job, and it's an impressive amount of work putting together that work budget. I'm going to start with 2 quotes. One, Gandhi, the true measure of any society or town in this instance can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. And also, you don't need to worry about your shoes if you're up to your eyeballs in alligators. So just highlighting who our most vulnerable members in Frome are and the pressing challenges. So we have roughly 27% of our residents who are suffering with some form of economic disadvantage. We have low wages. Our gross contribution per person is half as much as it is locally. 42% of the 60% of working adults employed in this town just have part-time jobs. 50% of our working adults commute out of the town for employment in other places, meaning that their contributions, both in work and also economically, are being made in different towns and villages surrounding us. If we look at Trowbridge and Warminster, because of the diversity in their jobs and sectors, their contributions per person economically are twice as high as they are in Frome. We know that there is change coming. We know that there is going to be jobs lost to innovation. We also know that as a town, at one point, Frome was set to rival Birmingham and Bath in terms of its success. Does anybody know why Frome didn't become the powerhouse that it was set to be? It failed to innovate, and it didn't make the changes that it needed to in order to address the new way of working and opportunities that the post-industrial revolution brought. That led to decades of decline and was only resolved with John Singer, who set up the Singer's Foundry and pulled Frome out of its demise into some economic growth. What we're doing in our work program is great, but it's stagnation, and we can't afford to stagnate. We need to be bolder, braver, innovative. We need to solve problems for those young people in our town who are underserved by the education system. We have nationally, our students don't achieve as well as others in Key Stage 2 or GCSE. We know that we have a problem with lack of access to post-16 options and no employability for those people who cannot afford to leave the town because of high transportation costs, poor connections, and underemployment. So whilst we are doing a number of things within this work program, they feel largely like plasters rather than addressing the real issues that face our residents. And I fear that if we do not make some bold moves, if we do not address these pressing challenges for the high number of residents who are deprived and underserved, that we will be left behind.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to pass the microphone to Peter for that.
Just like to pick up on two things within the work programme, which will begin to address some of those issues that you raised, Lisa. And they are important to the town, and we should be focusing on them. But the important thing to say is that part of our work programme next year will be working with our stakeholders. So that's working with the business community, with Somerset Council, with other stakeholders, to develop a Frome prospectus, which will look in detail at where Frome's future economic potential is and what work we need to do to realise that potential. So that's one fairly major piece of work that we will be doing. And the second is in looking at the opportunities to improve post-16 education. And again, we're lining up to work with a number of stakeholders on that. Somerset Council, University College of Somerset, Frome Chamber, the business community generally, and there are other stakeholders too that we've been talking with who will help us with that piece of work. It is only the start, but there is a focus on that in next year's work programme, and we'll be putting our shoulder to the wheel to try and make some progress in those areas.
Does that answer some of your question?
Unfortunately, not quite. I suppose I'd like to ask my fellow councillors how those most underserved in our community will actually benefit from this work programme. So if we think about a single parent living in my ward in Keyford, perhaps up at the Mount, what direct benefit is this work programme going to have to them, to the digitally excluded pensioner who is struggling with fuel poverty, to the any number of people who are directly underserved.
I'm going to bring Fiona in and then Jane.
So thank you, Lisa. So a few things there. So first of all, on your last question, the single mum in the Mount, I mean, I can think of straight away a few things that she would directly benefit from. The first being the Key Centre, which up until we took it on from Somerset Council was incredibly underused. It was, it was there was barely energy around it. And already there is an amazing programme of events happening there, and we're sort of building up slowly. There's also Tower View and other open spaces that we've just taken on that you look at them now and I think they look quite depressing personally. And we've got a real opportunity there to sort of develop them into something absolutely amazing for the children and young people. And then I think of all the advocacy work that we do. Peter mentioned some of it, you know, us beginning to look at the post-16 education. Obviously, that is going to take time, and we can't, again, it's a new area for us, and it's going to be us sort of feeling our way and seeing where we can be effective. But I think a couple of broader points is that, first of all, I disagree about this being stagnant. I know that saying that we're very innovative for a town or parish council is not a particularly high bar to meet, let's be honest. It's not like we're sort of, you know, known, it's a sector known for being innovative. But I really think that we are. I think there is a lot in here that is incredibly forward-facing and innovative. We're the first town council to use Go Vocal, which is a cutting-edge digital engagement platform. There's also in the budget space to look at a sort of a citizen assembly or citizen jury or something. So really sort of, you know, being at the cutting edge of democratic innovation, which is really exciting. I think we're also sort of really, you know, as always, sort of pushing beyond the, you know, the traditional, you know, our traditional remit, and looking at how we can, you know, solve some of the problems. But I think all of this is always a balance between the sort of stuff that Nick is, you know, talking about, the stuff that we can do where we can have a real impact, and our recognition that there are some really big problems here in Frome. And it's sort of, for me, it's a constant balancing act between us doing what we can to look at those really big problems and solve them, and recognizing we do have a role to play, and, you know, also not taking our eye off the really tangible stuff that we can deliver as well. So that's what I think this budget work programme, our strategy, is about. It's about balancing those two things.
Thanks, Fiona. Jane.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to. This is not a quick fix, but you know, we've been talking about infrastructure and making sure that we get the best from any new development that comes forward. You know, in order, if we use Selwood Garden Community as an example, I know that hasn't had a decision yet, but one of the things that we made sure we did as the town council was negotiate additional Section 106 money to provide skills training. So not just training for skills in the construction industry, but other skills around the town. Also, we made sure that there was sufficient employment that would come forward together with the housing. And, you know, these are things that we do with all large developments that come forward. We need, in some respects, we need the development to provide that infrastructure, and we really need SIL so that we can get more money to provide that infrastructure. And also, along with development comes more affordable housing. So just wanted to assure you that our priorities are focused on all of those issues, but, you know, they're not going to happen overnight, but that is one of our key objectives.
Steve?
Yeah, just following on from what Jane actually said, is that on all the developments that we've seen on the planning committee, we've been absolutely clear to protect employment space in the land. And if you recall on Saxonvale, that was one of the reasons we were so vehemently against the one of the applications that came through, because it didn't provide enough employment land. We don't know what the job sort of situation is going to be in 5 or 10 years' time, but we need to protect the employment sites that we have on land and in the town, and that's one of the things we're really clear about on the planning committee.
Thanks. Lisa?
I see all of those things, and I think that they are great. The employment, the three biggest employment sectors in this town are retail, hospitality, and tourism, all of which are very low value and don't actually bring a lot of economic return into our town. 50% of our working adults leave this town. Those are people working in professional industries. Those are people with high-value jobs. Those are people who are creating and developing businesses outside of this town, spending money in other towns, and building their economic might. Whilst we are bartering and positioning ourselves for more employment space, it is not bringing in those high-value jobs. 100, just 100 high-value jobs would produce £7 million of return within our community. Now, tourism over the year, largely due to the independent market, only brings in 2 million. Yet most of our investment is going towards tourism, retail, and hospitality, which aren't actually going to economically advantage this town or develop the skills and abilities of those post-16 learners who are educated outside of our town. I think we need to think very carefully going forward about how we invest in this town and meet the challenges that the residents in this town face. And I'm not sure that we're bold enough in our work programme.
Okay, Peter.
Just to say that we're going to turn over every stone as part of the work we do on the Frome prospectus. Every opportunity we see to attract new investment, new employment into the town, we will explore that, and we will not give up. So I can assure you that we will be putting real effort into that as part of that project.
Is that okay for now? I'm going to have to close that one down for now because we do need to move on. Thank you. That's an interesting conversation. Thank you. Any final points on that before we move on to the next thing, which is staff management chart? I think there's a copy on your table. And
so I'm only going to talk very briefly about this because hopefully you've had a chance to read the paper. Unfortunately, the chart that you see on the screen is difficult to interpret because there's quite a lot of information in that. So that is a snapshot, really, of the staff structure. But let me just refer to a number of points in terms of some changes that have gone on, really, over the last 12 months. So, as you'll have heard earlier, the team's been strengthened by the creation of our facilities manager post, and Alistair is now in post. The town clerk post is currently vacant, with me acting currently, and recruitment is underway. There's been a rationalisation of the communities team following Nikki Cox's departure, so there has been a reduction in the staffing numbers within the communities team, with Hannah taking on responsibility for managing that team solely. Within HR, Laura has been promoted to HR lead in recognition of the professional qualification she has obtained, and we now have a new business and HR administrator post with a vacancy filled by Sian James. I think, as we highlighted earlier, there are some changes proposed within this paper. So additional hours for the town centre coordinator to help with the delivery of our town centre work programme. Additional hours proposed for the marketing and communications assistant, and the extension or proposed extension of the contract of the home energy coordinator by 6 months. That's really all I wanted to say on that. In terms of the impact on salary budget, that's something that Sarah will pick up in the next part of this agenda item. But any questions?
any questions on staff? Thank you. Over to Sarah then to talk about the budget.
So, as usual, the budget is distributed in two formats. You'll have seen the work programmes with the costs associated with each project, and also there's an accounting version of the figures. This is the beautiful chart by miles this year, which shows the split of our total expenditure budget across the various different departments. This year, we had competing factors, and we wanted to keep the precept increase to the minimum possible, whilst also following the peer review's recommendation to strengthen financial resilience, and that would be through building stronger reserves or maintaining the reserves that we had. We also wanted to offer a work programme that delivers the Council's agreed strategy, including adequate staff capacity, whilst also keeping to as lean a salary budget as possible. Our salary budget for 26-27 is just 2% higher than 25-26 and represents 50% of our total expenditure budget. This is in line with other councils and lower than some. Where a council will tell you they have much less than 50% expenditure on their salaries, they usually contract out a lot of services. our overall expenditure for 26-27 is 36,000 less than last year's, but due to using less reserves, either carried forward or as a subsidy for income, our income is less. So the salary budget, whoops. The total budget of 1.8, as I said, is 2% higher than last year. Included in this budget are the additional hours for the marketing assistant and, sorry, that should say additional hours for the town centre coordinator. There's also the continuation of the retrofit role in the climate action team. That is not a permanent post. That's proposed to be 6 months. The budget does include an allowance for the year, but the proposal you're asked to accept at this meeting is just for 6 months. That would allow the climate team to apply for grant funding to continue their work. The budget has also been kept low, as Rob's mentioned, with the saving of one ranger recruitment and also of Hannah taking on most of Nikki's role, and we have in the budget some additional finance support, which we're not proposing at this meeting, but we'll bring forward later in 26. So, the income and the precept, the total expenditure is 3.6. Oh, sorry. The income from assets and rentals is 144. Then there's bank interest. This is down this year because Somerset Council are going to be paying our precept in 2 instalments instead of all in April, and therefore we lose the interest between April and September on half the precept. Grants are slightly up on last year. As I've said already tonight, we're using 159,000 from general reserves and 161 from earmark reserves, and that will give us a balanced budget. As many of you will have seen before, splitting the precept by the tax base gives you the annual Band D rate. The Band D rate isn't ideal to talk about for Frome because actually 76% of households in Frome are in Bands A to C. But the aggregated 89% of Frome households will pay an average increase of 32 pence per week based on this proposed budget. And another chart, beautifully coloured by Miles, thank you, which I think shows all households again. The last slide is about our reserves, and some of the comments we've had in previous years are that our reserves are too high, but the peer review group felt that we should be increasing our general reserves or our financial resilience. So whilst we have used a lot of earmark reserves in the current year, we have strengthened our general reserves, our prudent reserves, and we intend to maintain that for 26-27. And that is it for the budget. Are there any questions?
No questions for Sarah? Lenka, sorry, yeah. It's not a question.
I just wanted to thank Frome Town Council for once again giving Fair Frome £15,000 this upcoming year. As Lisa, said, lots of people are really struggling, and we are seeing that every day. So thank you very much, and for not raising the precept too much.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying thank you. Richard.
Thank you. Just talking about the precept, I am concerned that we're wanting to raise the precept by double the rate of inflation. Well, it was double yesterday. It's now even more than double the rate of inflation. And I think that speaks to what Lisa was talking about, which is the how this would affect the most vulnerable people in our community. So I'd just like to hear the justification for a double the rate of inflation precept rise. Thank you.
Sure. From my point of view, to start with, as I said, it was trying to balance the competing priorities. Primarily, we did want to keep the precept as low as possible, but the peer review report that we asked to look at our situation recommended that we increase our financial resilience, and we therefore we could have reduced our precept by using some of our reserves, but that would have left us in a weaker position. We have kept the staff capacity as low as possible with flexibility in there. And I think that's all I have to say. Has anyone else got anything to add?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, Anne?
Of course, the very vulnerable people within our community do get council tax relief, but something we should take up with Somerset Council is the level of that council tax discount that they provide, and their discretion with what benefit entitlement allows them to have that council tax discount, and that has changed. And you can help me here, Lenka, with the council tax discount. I think it changed, didn't it, with the move to universal credit, that some of those legacy benefits that people did get council tax relief on, when they were moved to universal credit, Somerset Council reduced their level of discretion as to what council tax relief would be provided. So again, with the lack of the social safety net that is provided by other levels of government, we're not required, but we feel that we have to step in and fill those gaps in how we support our community. And we can only do that if we've got money to do that. We, unlike Somerset, are not limited in the amount that we can raise our precept. If Somerset did raise their council tax demand and did some of the things that we feel they should be doing, we perhaps wouldn't need to step in and spend our money to fill those gaps.
Thanks, Anne. Fiona, I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to reply back to Richard's comment, and Anne sort of did say some of what I was going to say, because I think there's a few different ways of looking at this. I think that, as Anne said, I think there is a lot in this budget, in this work programme, that we do for the most vulnerable, and there is support there, as Lenka said, for Fair Frome, our community grants, and we've just, I was reading them the other day, and looking at the applications that we're getting, the support that these community organisations are offering is so needed. It's going to be a heartbreaking meeting next week, having to think about, make decisions as to what is funded. But it's clear that a lot of these organisations are really, really struggling, and they are the community support net that sort of catches people who are, facing who are facing difficulties for whatever reason. And I also think that our remit has grown considerably over the last few years. We are now, even with this increase, we are still, our bandy is still less than any of the big four town councils in Somerset. So we're significantly lower than Bridgewater. I'm not sure what theirs is this year, but last year their bandy was 415 and ours was 295. We've obviously now gone up to 315, but also Taunton and Yeovil as well. So we are sort of under that bar. And I think also, so I think that sort of justification is just, and how much, more we are doing. You've just sort of heard the work programme, like all the different areas that we're sort of working in. Our responsibility has really increased. And I think, we are all really aware that Somerset Council's financial situation is not resolved. We don't know what's going to happen with them. There is still the possibility of, them going bankrupt and a commissioner coming in. And I think we all want to be in as strong a position as possible for the town to be able to do what we can in that instance to protect what really matters to Frome, and as well as the peer review recommendations that Sarah's mentioned. And I think that it's also important to sort of bear in mind the difference of sort of, a 6% increase for Somerset Council, which is, approximately sort of, £200 a month, as opposed to a 6% increase for us at £20 a month. There's a big difference in that. But I won't ever say only or just when talking about an increase, because I know how much it adds up, and that comes from personal experience. So I'm not saying that, but I think that there is a lot of really good work that we're doing, and I think that it is good value. It is really good value for money, personally.
I have actually got the figures here, Polly, before I come to you. I have actually got the comparative Band D rates for 26-27 Bridgewater 432, Yeovil 370, Wells 367, Taunton 338 and Frome 315. Polly.
Just further to the things that Fiona and Anne have said, I think that a very good point might be to make, what would it look like if we cut back in the way that Somerset has done? In recent canvassing on the doorsteps, everything that came up that people felt was missing, I had to sort of not point the finger at Somerset, but say, that's actually not our remit, that's Somerset. Lots of things that come up about roads and, you know, things like weeds that come up all the time. We've just talked about an amazing work programme that covers so many areas and areas that we took a long time to decide over. It's not just a number, it represents the work that goes on. And if we took it away, there would be a lot of, you know, people who would notice those things. I don't think it's responsible for us to keep the precept artificially low. I don't think that's a responsible thing to do. I think the responsible thing is to see where the gaps are and try and make those work in as small amount of rise for the precept as possible. And I think that's what we've done.
Thank you, Polly. Is that helpful, Richard? Lisa.
I just have a few questions about, I suppose, about all of them, but I'll limit it to 4 and 5. So Frome received 1.7 million from the Green and Healthy project. I know that there was money ring-fenced for the renewables work and retrofit. I'm also aware that in previous conversations, some of the work towards a retrofit didn't actually have the impact that we had hoped or was originally planned for. In addition to that, going back to what I just said about Frome's most vulnerable residents, and knowing that retrofit largely benefits people who own their own homes, although we are doing work in businesses to help fit those out as well. My question is, what direct impact will the residents of Frome get from that nearly £20,000, or just over £20,000 investment?
Thank you, Peter.
Just wanted to highlight that the work of this particular officer isn't just concerned with retrofit. It's also concerned with the provision of home energy advice, especially to those who are on in a kind of fuel poverty situation, and they've been involved in organising various events within the community. There have been various drop-in sessions where we know that those who are not just interested in substantial retrofit of their homes, but interested in more basic things, you know, in terms of home insulation, etc., have been able to benefit. I think the other element, so that work will continue, assuming the home energy advice team have reached about 426 residents.
And how many are retrofitted?
For the record, Lisa's asking how many are retrofitted.
Okay, so
I can help here.
okay, carry on, Fiona.
Yes, just to say that it's a real shame that Jo isn't here tonight, because when you hear her talk about some of the homes that she's going into to help with energy advice, she talks about how horrific the mold is, and you know, some of these really poorly designed sort of social housing homes that she's going into. You mentioned about the retrofit not working. I think I'm actually really proud in a way of that, because I think what we did there was we saw that we thought we got funding for something, we thought it was going to work, it turned out that it didn't, and we were able to sort of recognize that and then pivot and then explore how we could make better use of that funding. I don't know the latest figures because they change all the time, but a lot of the energy advice is low income households, because there's been specific outreach through the medical practice are able to do targeted marketing in a way that we're not, and reach those who have like lung conditions. And also it's been sort of it worked with Frome, for instance, so we've been able to really specific target. The evaluation report of the whole project, of the whole 1.7 million, is being worked on as we speak. I was actually looking at something to do with it earlier, and is coming to, I think, a council meeting in March or April. And there's some really interesting findings. But I think the amount of money that we've been able to save residents through the energy advice, I don't want to say a number because I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it is, I remember looking at it and going, that's good. That's, it is really good. And there is, it's healthy homes. So it's both the health benefits, and there are cost savings there in terms of the savings for the NHS, as well as sort of the benefits to the individuals. And then there's also the home, the savings as well.
Okay, let me bring in Peter and then Anne.
Just to say, I'm just reading here from the report that came to our Community and Place Committee meeting last month. 66 cases have been referred to the Centre for Sustainable Energy for further assistance. That includes grant applications for energy efficiency measures, dealing with complex situations requiring specialist casework, resolving disputes with energy suppliers, and support with energy-related debt. And the indication in that report was that Healthy Homes referrals have delivered over 140,000 in financial benefit to Frome residents. But that is just a snapshot, because we know that there are more cases coming through the pipeline. Those are only those that were recorded prior to submitting that report.
And I'm just echoing some of the things that Fiona just said. I'm also, many of you know, I'm also a trustee for Frome, and Lenka will be able to help me with some of the stats. But I know that the energy advisors attend our pantry, don't they, Lenka? So the community pantry, Frome's community pantry, we are dealing with our more disadvantaged members of the Frome community, because we are targeting that at the pantry. So the energy advisors attend the pantry. So we are trying to target the more disadvantaged members of the community.
Thank you. I am going to move on to the recommendations now, which I think we are going to take in sections.
Can I just highlight for a moment that there is, in fact, a duplicate in here, which we've actually struck out, so apologies for that. So 3 is repeated at 7, so please disregard 3. It's just a duplicate. I don't think there's a need to actually vote on that amendment, because it's simply a
deletion.
A deletion. And I think the proposal is to take these 4 now on this slide together in terms of the first vote.
So that is points 1 to 4 of agenda item 6. Can I have somebody to propose that? Anne Hills, somebody to second, Mark Dorrington. All those in favour?
That's a majority.
Lisa, are you abstaining or voting against?
I'm voting against, thank you.
So if we can have the next slide. So we're going to take these 2 together, which is approve the work programme for 26-27 and approve the proposed management structure for 26-27.
Thank you. Can I have someone to propose? Steve Tanner, someone to second, Anita Collier. All those in favour? Abstentions? Nays? That's 3.
Yep. So that's carried by a majority.
Yeah. And the next slide.
So we're taking approve the budget, approve the general reserve, approve the forecast earmark reserves, and approve the precept demand of 3,023,126 for 26-27.
I have a proposer, Lindsay, seconder, Philip Campagna. All those in favour?
It's 11 in favour.
Abstentions? Nays? That's 3. It's carried by majority.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are moving on to point 7.
So Fiona is going to introduce this. So this is the improvement plan.
Yes. Can it be noted that I would have voted, if I'd been in the room, I would have voted for all of that. I know.
Fair enough.
I
Noted.
can't. Thank you. Right. So this is the improvement plan. This improvement plan really started with a moment of honesty early last year when we recognised that we had grown very quickly as an organisation. The scale, scope and complexity of the work we're now doing is very different even a few years ago. And we could see that some of our systems, processes and governance arrangements hadn't quite kept pace with this growth. The challenge, and it remains a live one, is how we strengthen those foundations without losing the things that make this council distinctive: our nimbleness, our responsiveness, and our deep community-focused way of working. Rather than rushing into change, we took the decision to step back and invite external challenge. We approached the Local Government Association and asked for a peer review. At the time, they had only just started offering these to town councils. I believe we were 7th in the country to do so, which in itself says something about our willingness to reflect and learn. In July, the peer team spent 2.5 days with us, and I can't thank them enough for their time, energy and expertise. They spoke with councillors, staff and, importantly, stakeholders from across the town, something we specifically asked them to as we wanted to understand how we are experienced by the wider community. It was a genuinely valuable process. It gave us protected time for self-reflection and inquiry, which is rare in the day-to-day pace of what we do. When the report came back in late August, there was a huge amount to be proud of. They described us as an ambitious, values-driven organisation with a distinctive ethos of fostering community capacity and energy, and as a highly valued and integral part of Frome community. They recognised and respected that our growth had been underpinned by innovation, a strong commitment to engagement, and a willingness to work beyond conventional boundaries. But they also reflected back to us something that we already knew, that this expansion brings new challenges, and that we now need stronger and more consistent systems for governance, leadership, performance management, project management, and financial and risk management. This was exactly the kind of constructive challenge we had hoped for. So in October, this council agreed our response. We didn't want to produce a tick box action plan. Instead, we established an advisory group to take a broader, more in-depth look at the whole organisation, to test the peer review findings, to make sure nothing had been missed, and to draw everything together into a single cohesive improvement and transformation plan that will guide our work over the next 2 years. For the first time, we also created a dedicated improvement and transformation work programme, recognising that this is a core ongoing piece of work, not a one-off. This is about embedding a culture of continuous reflection and learning as we grow, putting those habits and structures in place now so that we remain both effective and true to our values in the years ahead. The advisory group, which I chair, has met 3 times so far for long, in-depth sessions, going through every aspect of how we operate and shaping the plan you have in front of you tonight. So this document is not just about fixing a few things, it's about taking a strong, successful organisation and making sure we have the governance, leadership and systems we need to sustain our impact for the future, while holding on to the creativity, ambition and community energy that make Frome Town Council what it is. Once again, I'm really proud to have led on this piece of work alongside Peter, and I just wish I was able to vote for it. There we go.
Thanks, Fiona. Peter, over to you.
I'm going to take you through the improvement plan, or the draft improvement plan. So the first thing I wanted to say very much is that high-performing organisations, whether they're in sport, industry or public life, have one thing in common, which is that they all strive for continuous improvement. Not because they're failing, but because they want to do better and make a difference in the sports markets and communities that they operate in. And this organisation is no different. We at Frome Town Council are committed to continuously improve to make a bigger difference to the lives of people in Frome. The last item on this agenda was very much about what we're going to do and how it's going to be funded. But this one is much more about how we're going to do that and the things that we're going to try and improve along the way to ensure that we make that bigger difference for local people. So what is being recommended? The proposals fall into four categories. Laura, if I could have the next slide, please. So those four categories you see here on the slide, and they very much accord with the four categories that were promoted by the peer review group in their report. What is proposed is a collection of practical, realistic, affordable measures to be delivered over a period of a year, so 26-27. But we'll set the foundation for the work that we do well beyond that. And what I'm going to do is run through briefly for each category what the peer review group proposed, what we have done already, because actually we've been hitting the ground running. We haven't actually waited for this moment to actually start to make improvements, and the recommended next steps, which will form the basis of the recommendations to you tonight. So next slide, please. So what the peer review team said about HR, cultural and councillor development is that FTC should strengthen governance and decision-making and invest in councillor development. And we should also prioritise staff well-being and development. And what we've already done is we've engaged with staff and have already improved the feedback to them on why decisions are made. We have, we've already improved our capacity in HR. So you will have heard earlier how we have created the post of HR lead. So very much that is a proactive role, it's not a responsive role, it's looking at everything that a modern, large town council needs to do to support its workforce. And we've also taken on an administrator who will support Laura in that role. So we haven't waited, we've already started to address that capacity. And as many of you will know and participated in, we've had our first training session for councillors around meeting protocols. And that is a suggested start of a series of briefings that will help with governance and compliance. So what happens next? What is the proposal for next steps? So at May Council, we're proposing to bring a report on how we will update our policies. So, I mean, that's a standard thing that we normally do each year, but we will be bringing a number of new policies to that meeting to ensure that we're fully compliant when it comes to all of the legislation which is now coming out of government. You'll have seen in the paper that we are proposing a scheme of delegation. Some of that is already contained within financial regulations and with the standing orders. What we want to do is bring it all together and also review how duties and powers are actually delegated to see how we can ensure that there is a relatively even distribution in terms of delegation of duties to make us more efficient ultimately. And as part of that, one of the things that we will be doing is trying to clarify the role of lead councillors. That's something that councillors have asked for, that we make that clear. So that will be coming to council in June. We're going to be doing some more briefings, as I mentioned. There are some new things going on in terms of legislation. So we know that the Hillsborough law, which is the duty of candour, is in the pipeline at the moment and is likely to become law before too long. That's responding to things like the Hillsborough tragedy, Grenfell, and the post office Horizon scandal, things like that. And it's all about the duty of candour. So all of those things and more will be covered in briefings for councillors and staff in a series between June and September. We'll be putting in place an annual facilitated staff meeting to explore how we can improve internal communication. That was something that staff asked for when we got together with them when the peer review report first came out, and so we're responding to that. We're going to be engaging with staff around staff welfare to address things like toil and flexible working, and come to the July Operations and Assets Committee with a report on that. As you would expect in a growing organisation, we're going to do a training needs analysis and bring that to Council in October. We're going to review our approach to recruitment, and we're going to develop a comprehensive induction process for councillors. This was something that was particularly highlighted within the Improvement Advisory Group as being quite useful. So that obviously will primarily benefit the next administration, but the process of actually developing that induction process might be useful in terms of the current administration too. But the plan is to roll that out in May 2027 and actually do an annual refresher for councillors. So I'm going to move on now to finance and risk management. I'll take questions after I've dealt with the four categories. The peer review team said that FTC should develop a medium-term financial plan, review and strengthen our risk management, and strengthen our resources of the finance team. What we've already done is addressed some of the capacity issues within the finance team. So we've put in place new procedures for payments. That's also about ensuring that there are proper checks made on all payments that the council makes. And in fact, I'm now involved in that process, in checking payments, which wasn't something that was happening before. The reliance was very much on the finance team. So there's a new procedure there. And we're also now contracting out payroll. And we have in place now maternity cover for Hannah Watts, and we're keeping that capacity under review. So there are, as Sarah mentioned earlier, there are no specific recommendations there to strengthen the finance team further, but we must keep that under review to ensure that we address this area of work in a serious way. So here are the recommended next steps. We update our risk management plan, and we propose to bring that to the next council meeting. And the proposal is to develop that draft medium-term financial plan. So that typically is a plan 3 to 5 years ahead, looking at all of the risks, financial risks that the organisation may face, opportunities that may come up, and ensure that we've got a robust plan in place. And we're going to turn to the Improvement Advisory Group to assist with developing that and bring a report to Operations and Assets Committee in July. 2 more. Operational efficiency, performance and impact. What the peer review team said is that FTC should embed project and performance management. So how we've responded to that is obviously we developed the council plan back in, and you adopted that back in October. And this now approved work programme for 26-27 is firmly underpinned by that. So there is a golden thread that's running between the council plan and the work programme. And that golden thread will run through to the objectives that are set for individual members of staff, and they will be assessed on that, and I'll come to that in a moment. The other thing that we're doing is, as you would expect with any large and developing organisation, is we're making the best use we can of IT tools to improve efficiency and encourage that collaboration that's important between teams. What we need to ensure as part of that is that staff are fully trained in all of that, and that those tools are easy, not just for staff, but also for councillors to navigate. So we're making sure that we keep on top of that. So those are things where we've hit the ground running already. As you would expect, we will be ensuring that appraisals are a robust means of managing performance and behaviours. That's one of the things that the Improvement Advisory Group identified. We need to think and assess the kind of interaction that staff have with other members of staff and with councillors, and ensure that the values that are important to the council are, are being pursued. And that, as I mentioned, that the council objectives remain that golden thread in terms of objective setting, and that are being delivered when it comes to individual work programmes. So the intention is for us to roll that out immediately. Our end of year appraisals are due in March, and we will follow through on that, assuming that you agree. Obviously, these are all proposals. I'm talking about these as though they're going to happen, but obviously you need to vote on them. And the last point on that one is we're going to review our approach to project management. We already have some tools in place, but we need to make sure that they're fit for purpose. And the intention is to bring a report to Operations and Assets, I think, in July on that. Last one. So on external relationships and collaboration, the peer review team encouraged us to deepen our collaboration with Somerset Council. They suggested that we should align our communications with our strategic goals. So that's external communications. And we should lever all of the sector tools and networks that are available at our disposal. I think you will have heard earlier from a member of the public that SALC is an important network that we can make use of, but also NALC and the Society for Local Council Clerks. So all of those networks are ones that we should be using extensively. And in terms of our relationship with Somerset Council, obviously we have agreed successfully to take on a number of new assets and services. So there was a successful conclusion to our devolution negotiations. We are going to keep our eye on that. We're going to continually review opportunities for to take on further assets and services. But for the moment, and as Fiona mentioned earlier, the focus is very much on consolidation, making sure that all of our new assets and services are managed appropriately, well, and that they're delivering benefits to the local community. We obviously maintain regular contact with Somerset Council at all levels, councillor, staff, and we are, I think as you heard earlier, pursuing various conversations around potential collaboration. One area, of course, is around waste management, but there's an opportunity for us to work with Somerset Council in terms of the work on economic development and our work on post-16 education. We're taking every opportunity to publicise what we do and ensure that our external communications align with the council plan, and we're already making very good use of all of these networks. I personally have attended a number of events organised by SLCC, and I know that some of you have attended training sessions organised by SALC, etc. So we'll continue to make good use of those networks. And this is what we're recommending. We continue to explore those opportunities for collaboration. And that on external communications, and this is part of our work programme anyway, that we update our council website and marketing and communication strategy to ensure that our communications align very strongly with the council's agreed aims and objectives. So that really is the end of my presentation on that. I suppose just one last point that I wanted to make, if I may. Some of the changes that you've heard are substantial, others are less so. But I think it's fair to say that if you aggregate those marginal gains, that will potentially account for a lot. Take sport, where for many years there's been a big focus on the principle of 1% improvement in key elements of performance. An adoption of that principle has made a big difference to both teams in sport, but also teams in industry and public life. And if it works for them, why not FTC?
Thank you, Peter. Lisa, you were first up.
Two questions. One, Peter, I know that you've done an MBA and you'll know about kind of setting targets and things like that. One of the recommendations made is that there should be a better use of kind of smarter accountability. It doesn't necessarily say smart targets, but smarter accountability. And there was also a line that suggested that the 2026-2027 work programme was underpinned by smarter targets, more or less. I didn't see any evidence of kind of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, or time-bound within the work programme. And I'm just wondering if there's another additional kind of sister or complementary document that gives a little bit more detail towards smarter targets.
It's a really interesting question. I'd like to think that they were smarter, those aims and objectives within the council plan, than they ever have been before. I know that staff and councillors work quite hard to make them much more focused, much more specific. There are some numerical targets identified within the work programme, and we were talking just a few minutes ago about, for example, our climate action programme, where we're aiming to support 50 retrofitted homes. So I think peppered throughout the work programme, there are a number of targets that we've identified. It's by no means comprehensive, but hopefully you can see that we're nodding towards those smarter goals, and we'll continue to work on it. I mean, this is a work in progress. There's no question when it comes to improvement, and we will, through the course of the coming year, look at ways in which we can develop smarter goals for us to be working towards.
And I wouldn't want that to hinder kind of the amazing work that the officers and councillors do. So not at the cost of stopping progress and impact. And the other point that I just want to pick up, when you mentioned about leveraging sector tools and networks, you largely talked about kind of political. And I'm just thinking if there's, wondering if there's space in there to access some of the industries in the town, such as aerospace, engineering, management, working with those collaboratively to possibly develop degree apprenticeships or opportunities for post-16, and also leveraging the amount of our residents who are working in Silicon Gorge, developing IT and new softwares and kind of digital tech.
Certainly, we'll be looking to engage with a lot of those businesses as part of the work on our Frome prospectus, and I dare say that we can learn from that, in terms of things that we might be able to do here at FTC. I think that's a potentially rich source of information and ideas that we might be able to apply. So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully we can benefit from it. I know Fiona's got a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, a comment maybe.
Yeah.
I was just going to come back to Lisa and just add to what you said, Peter, that the sister document is our council plan, which we agreed back in October. As Peter said, they're not perfect SMART goals, but they're definitely a step in the right direction. Just to look at the environmental sustainability, there is has numbers in it. Sorry, brain, I'm tired. Plant 5,000 trees across Frome, including a community woodland of 3,000 trees. Increase local renewable electricity generation by 5% per year compared to 2020 baseline. Support 100 homes annually to become more energy efficient. So we're definitely, I would be the first to admit they're not perfectly smart, but it's definitely, to the best of my knowledge, it's the first time we've had targets as a town council, and there's definitely some in there, and it's a step in the right direction, and that's something that can be improved on, year after year. But the idea is that those objectives then form the basis of the performance and management structure, I think, so that then becomes a sort of a cohesive way of measuring our progress towards these goals and our impact as well.
Thank you, Fiona. Andy?
Yeah, just 2 points. First, I think smart objectives are great, but a lot of the work we do, we would risk diverting a huge amount of effort into establishing a baseline before you can start to measure how much you've improved that baseline. And as I think Lisa herself alluded, it's far better that we use our staff time to do the work than divert too much energy into actually measuring the detail of the numbers. Having said that, the previous slide to this was talking about the need to revamp our web page and 1 or 2 similar objectives, and I would have liked to see a target date against that.
Don't know whether Rachel has any insight into that in terms of by when we hope to have those things done.
Yeah, at the moment we haven't currently got the brief. We will attempt to get the brief together really quickly, but we have got a full and work programme to complete by the end of March before we move on to the next. So that's not scheduled in until April. And then it will depend on which developer we pick and their availability.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nick? Can you give Nick the mic?
Yeah, very quickly. I mean, I agree we should have a sort of a performance regime of some sort, but a lot of the work we do is quite nebulous in terms of measurement. It'd be wrong, I think, to force staff into trying to achieve targets that are set when we don't really understand how we can measure that in an effective way.
Thank you. Rob?
Just to mention in passing that the management plans that we're doing for all of our sites, the new ones, they have aims, they have vision, aims and objectives, and the objectives are 1 year and 2 year with specific outcomes, and they're time bound, so they're gradually being rolled out across the site.
Thank you. Any more questions for Peter? Anne, did you have a little wave? Little wobble? In that case, can we go to the recommendation, which I'm not really seeing there, to delegate authority to the acting town clerk, thank you, Gavin, to implement the proposed improvement plan set out in this report. Can I have a proposer? Nick Dove, seconder Polly Lamb. All those in favour? That's pretty much everyone. Lisa, are you abstaining or Lisa's abstaining?
That's carried.
Carried. Motion is carried. Well done. Thank you for that, Peter. And thank you to everyone who's put the work in, Fiona and the team, the improvement team. That's a lot of work and it's a really good report and I'm really glad it's passed. So well done, everyone. Miraculously, I do believe we've come in under time. Thank you to everyone for coming. Thanks to everyone's contribution from the management team. Rachel, did you want to say something?
We just have one more photo now.
Oh, loudy-da. This is the formal closure of the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you next month.
Can we gather under the arch?